We're live.
Yay!
Welcome to Tipsy Ellipses.
Yes. Do you want to explain what Tipsy Ellipses are this month, Missy?
Sure. And then, and then when I botch it, you can re-explain it. So yeah, if you've never been here before for a Tipsy, it's once a month. We go live from our Facebook page for a much more relaxed conversation than normal. A little less prep work on our parts, maybe.
A
Not
lot
that we're not
less.
prepared, but we're not we're not being super careful. We usually have a cocktail and we have guests who are cool moms doing all kinds of cool things. Sometimes it's just us, but we are lucky to have a guest tonight. And I
Yes.
will wait and we'll do a big introduction in just a second, but that's what it is. And then this will be available as a podcast download, usually Friday-ish.
Friday.
So
If
later
all
this
goes
week.
well.
Yeah. So if you don't like to hop on and watch Facebook Live, you can just listen to it. And for those who are afraid of Facebook Live, we can't see you. You don't have to participate. You can just sit and watch. But if you really want to participate, you can ask, and then we maybe could add you to the stream. So.
Oh,
Yeah.
But yes, we don't do it. We don't surprise attack anybody with it.
No, we won't call on you.
Yeah. Hey, and who are you?
Oh, who am I is a great question today. So I'm Missy Stevens' mom and ... writer, foster care advocate, and today winning football team watcher. Last football game, they finally won. So that was exciting.
That is so exciting to end on a
Yeah.
high note.
Yes, after a lot of low notes.
Oh, you know what? My son plays on those I-9, so it's like
Yep.
non-competitive sports. And he's been one season where they were undefeated, and then he's been on another season where they didn't win a single game. And it's just kind of fun to see. It's a different dynamic, but it can still be fun and special in its own way.
Yes.
Can you tell that I am do not disturbing our
I just
text
did it
thread?
because I realized that I had forgotten to do not disturb.
Yeah, if y'all listened to Tipsy Ellipses a couple months ago, we had our text thread ladies as the guests, and it never fails as soon as we start recording. It's like bing, 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 bing. I don't know what they're talking about, but it's
Well, I
probably a good
ran
one.
into Leanne at our football game, who's
That's
one of our
probably what
text
she's
thread
telling
ladies.
everybody.
So yeah, and we took a picture and I posted it, so that maybe is what it is. But that
Made
was
it
fun.
official.
Yeah, that was so
Well,
fun.
now, and I am Suzanne Kearns. I'm a mom and ... LGBTQ advocate, a writer, and tonight I'm a little tipsy, apparently.
I'm not even tipsy yet, and I just could barely do my intro. I don't know. I'm just tired.
I know. It's candy. I got the sugar buzz.
Oh, I know.
But like we said, we have a guest tonight. We have Cindy Whitesides, who I'm so excited. Y'all probably heard me talk about Cindy before because she is a mom and ... life coach and a runner. And she is the friend who I talk about who got me to try stand-up paddleboarding. So, I mean, talk about a good life coach, getting me to do that. She can work you through anything if she can get me to do that.
I was kind of scared for you since you're not really a swimmer.
No, I wore my life jacket, didn't I, Cindy?
Yeah,
And Cindy
she
was
did.
there to
She did.
I sweat. Oh my God. Talk about sweat. It was like 95 degrees and I had a life jacket on like a weirdo.
So
Everybody else is,
Mhm.
yeah, just me and the 8-year-olds out there. And but so Cindy is, like we said, a life coach and helps women, including me, imagine and create the truest versions of their lives. And she likes to go deep and identify the patterns, themes, and stories in our lives that are keeping us stuck, which is such a huge topic for us, talking about getting unstuck. And some of this, it was kind of fun reading Cindy's bio because some of this I didn't know about her. So I'm learning a bit as I read too. But
awesome.
so a graduate of Texas A&M University and also has a master's degree from Colorado State University. So she's a smarty pants and has had a really interesting variety of teaching and counseling roles. And what I have known her primarily as is a small business owner who co-founded and runs a medical practice with her husband. So that has been talk about some pivots. So whereas
pivots.
yeah, so the expertise was primarily in teaching and counseling roles, but was basically running a business, a medical practice, which that's interesting stepping out of your roles. But
yeah.
Before we
right.
dive too much into that, though, twin boys who are 10, a bonus
Mhm.
daughter who's 23, who we just adore. She's she
She's our
works at the
favorite.
medical practice.
She does, she
Awesome.
does. She's our best medical assistant.
She is, and she was the medical assistant for my daughter a couple of weeks ago, in fact. And Cindy, I knew you were an avid runner, but 6 marathons and 12 half marathons.
Wow.
That's right.
Yeah.
I had to count.
I
I
know.
wasn't sure.
Oh my gosh.
1 full and 2 half, and I feel like that's more than enough. I'm just
It
not cut
is.
out for running.
I am just starting the training for another half with my daughter, and
Mhm.
every single time it feels like it's impossible and that I'll never even be able to make it mile, but I've been here enough times before that I know that somehow it happens, which is kind of a
Yeah,
nice little metaphor for life coaching as well. I
It
mean,
truly.
it
yeah.
truly is. It is for sure. Because marathoning, half marathoning, whatever it is, you don't start out running 13 miles, 20 miles, 26. You don't do
Mm-mm.
that. And I've heard you talk about your training. You start out with 10 minutes, work up to 20. You do the run walking. You do, it's
Mhm.
little pivots that add up over time, and that's what gets you there. It's a beautiful metaphor for all kinds of changes in our life, for sure.
Yeah,
It is,
yeah.
and it also is kind of a metaphor for I've been warning my daughter about this, and, like, if you take too much time off, like, if
Mm,
you think that, "Oh, cool, I'm up to 10 miles, I got this, I mean, I'm a runner." You take a week off, and it's
mhm.
almost like starting from
Starting over.
scratch again,
Yeah.
and so I kind of feel like that is a similar thing too, where we get kinda cocky and we think, "Oh, we got this figured out. It's
Mm.
fine." Kinda like my son who's always like, "I don't need to keep taking my allergy medicine because I feel good." I'm like, "No, no."
Why you feel good.
It's
Right,
why you
right.
feel good.
The
But, okay, so
practices matter.
It is an
uh,
incredible metaphor for life.
it
You
is.
It
just have to
is.
keep plugging along.
And it just makes you
Mhm,
so dang tired.
mhm. I think there's a mantra in running that is consistency is more important than volume, and that has
Oh,
always stuck with me. It's like it's the all or nothing thinking that we talk about all the time, where
right.
if I can't do the 10, I shouldn't do anything. If I can't do whatever's on my
Yep.
plan, and just tonight I was supposed to have had a 5 mile run today. My day got all off the whack, like, just,
Yep.
and I'm watching the clock, and I gotta be with Suzanne and Missy later, and I didn't want to miss it. And I had that mantra in my head. So I went out for a 2 miler. And 2 miles in the scope of what I'm doing this week isn't that much. It's not a big deal, but it's that consistency day in, day out. 2 miles is better than 0 miles. And so, yeah, there's the metaphor.
Oh,
I
that's
love that
so
mindset.
good because we do that with writing all the time, don't we, Missy?
Yes.
Where we think it's all or
Yes.
nothing, like, if I can't sit down in a cabin by a creek for 10 hours straight, then it just
For
doesn't even
sure.
count as writing, whereas, no, it's writing a page here and there while you're in the car in the pickup line or while you're waiting at a doctor's office or, whatever the
Yeah.
case may be, so I
Hmm.
love
It
that you did
adds
that.
up. Yeah.
Yay. Oh, that's an
Yeah.
inspiration. Okay, now
You just keep the muscles, like, our brain is just like that. You just keep those
Hmm.
muscles working
Hmm.
and don't
yeah.
let them forget how to do it.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. Now speaking of inspiration, so you have kind of been my informal life coach even before you decided to formally become a coach. And I'm so thrilled just because I just feel from the day I met you like this is what you should be doing. So I'm just really curious. So like that takes a lot of courage to I mean it I watched it from the background, the decisions
Mhm.
that went into it, but can you kinda talk about, like, what went into that decision to go and become a certified coach, and, what are even the choices available for people who are maybe thinking about it themselves and don't even know where to start?
Yeah, it's been a journey, and a journey. Honestly, you said since we've known each other, it's been a
Mhm.
journey. On my website, I actually point all the way back to third grade.
Oh,
Um,
yes.
I had
I
I had
love the
this
story.
experience
Tell
with a
that story,
kid.
yeah.
Oh my gosh, it's surprising to me that this has stuck with me. Like, I don't have a lot of clear memories of third grade, but there was a kid in my class whose parents were going through a divorce, and I was sitting next to him one day, and he started kind of spilling his guts about it and just how much it sucked and what he was going through. And I had been through some similar stuff, and I just, no training as an 8-year-old. I just
Were you certified at this point?
I was not certified. I was, and later that day, he comes up to me on the playground, and he's like, Cindy. I mean, it's a funny thing for a kid conversation to say, but he just said,
Right.
Cindy, you're really easy to talk to. Thanks. And I just remember being like, oh, it felt like the most natural thing in the world to me. So Suzanne, as you mentioned, when I look at my career trajectory, there's all these kind of parts that seem a little disparate. Like I was teaching outdoor education, and I worked as a counselor for a treatment center for teenagers with drug problems, and I worked with college students who had been in violation of university policies. And when I started to piece together during some of my ... searching, it was like, where are the threads in this? And it has to do with listening and being with a person through some difficult stuff. And I've always been really comfortable with that. I've had a really high tolerance for that. Like somebody can tell me big stories and big stuff, and I can be there with them. And then also I've had people say, like, how do you hear all this stuff and then walk away and go on with your life? And that's I can do both. And so so I've been running this medical practice for about 8 years, and that was a huge pivot out of a couple-year break when my boys were born. I stayed home with them for almost 3 years. So definitely relate to a lot of what y'all talk about on this podcast of like, you step out on one career and then now all you're doing is wiping butts and wiping counters and you're like, what
Professional wiper.
And that's right. Professional wiper. I've heard you say that. And I was like, yeah, that's
Noses.
Everyone needs something wiped. So I've been doing that, and I certainly have gained incredible skills from that. But even in that role, when I was working in the office, I don't do that directly anymore. But when I did, I remember working with staff, and it's like I cared a lot less about their performance than a staff member who was going through a big life transition or somebody who was sorting out a relationship problem. And so what my office kind of looked like was a little coaching room. That's what we did there when I worked. So there's been a thread of it forever, and that's kind of when, as I started looking for my next move, this made sense.
It's so exciting.
awesome.
So now, okay, so where does one start when one is trying to decide
That's a great question.
if they want to be a coach, but then if they just say, yes, for sure, I do want to be a coach, I'm assuming that there's all kinds of different certification programs based on what area you want to focus on. I'm assuming that I have zero idea. I mean, I know what you were focusing on, but I don't know the wide variety.
Yeah, you bet. It honestly, and I say this with all respect, but some people refer to the coaching industry as the kind of unregulated Wild West. And it is in some ways. It is a largely unregulated industry. I'm a coach. Who could be a coach? We're all coaches. Like anyone, there's no legal container to be able to call yourself a coach. It doesn't exist. And there's pros and cons to that, right? Like, so, anyone can be a coach. And so the barrier to entry can be a little bit low. So somebody who really has a passion for this and wants to do it, they can get in. And it also means that the quality can vary widely with the amount of training someone has and their experience and what kind of certifications they've gone through. But there is an international organization called the International Coaching Federation, or ICF, and they are the largest organization of coaches. It's a nonprofit group that works to set standards and accreditation. The program that I just finished becoming certified through is an ICF accredited program. So that's a place to start in terms of standards, is looking for an ICF accredited program, because that means it's met some basic standards about how much training you've had, how many hours you've been coaching, ethical standards. It's the only organization that you can belong to as a member that enforces ethical standards for coaches. So if I'm a coach and I violate your confidentiality and I'm an ICF member, you can lodge a complaint with the ICF. And that's important from a regulation standpoint, from a safety standpoint. So that's a good place to start. As ICF, they accredit. Accreditate, that's what we're going for, various coaching programs at different levels. And so you can take these training programs. Some programs are ICF accredited, some aren't. And so that's kind of what the process looks like. You go through one of those programs, you get certified there, and then if you want to go on for an ICF accreditation, that's a separate process than your training process. And so you talked about styles. There's different coaching styles. There's different places that focus on, relationships or money coaching or career coaching or whatever. So really, the sky's the limit. I mean, people do sexuality work. People do, I have a friend who's an ADHD executive function coach for
Oh.
teenagers and college kids. Like, wow, that's fascinating. I have a friend that's a body image coach. Like, the range is really wide.
So how did you pick the program you chose?
So, that's a great question. The program I just went through is called the Courageous Living Coach Certification Program, and the director of the program, Kate Swoboda, has been a coach since the mid 2000s or something. She's been around a while, and I've been on her mailing list. I don't know how I got on her mailing list originally, but I've been following her for a long time, and I liked her vibe. I liked her approach is all about kind of a forward-leaning, positive approach to courage, and courage is a habit, right? Like
Mm,
that, all the things we talk about changing our lives or improving or reaching a goal, whatever, like it kind of starts with courage. The courage to name what you're after, the courage to tell the truth to yourself, the
yeah.
courage to show up for your habits every day. And so it was an ICF accredited program, and that's something that I knew was important to me, especially people who might work in corporate coaching. So that's something that's trending in the world of coaching is corporations actually hiring in-house coaches.
Mhm.
Mm,
So you're just a staff coach, right?
Like on
Like when you
Ted
do,
Lasso.
like
that's right. That's right. Dr. Sharon. That's right.
That's my, frame of reference.
She's an actual licensed psychologist, but same.
Okay.
yeah.
Well, that's how it
Yeah.
goes.
So if you want to do that kind of work, definitely being an ICF accredited coach would be the first step because, in
Right.
corporate world, they're looking for like, you need to have some certification, and that's
Yeah.
that's kind of the one they'd be looking
Yeah.
for.
Now how long does that all take then?
Yeah, that was
I
my
mean,
next question.
is it a set your own pace based on, if someone is full-time working another job and they're trying to, make little small bites towards it? Or is it something that
Mhm.
if you were full in for, 6 months, you could just nail it out real fast? Like, how does that work?
Yeah. Again, I can't speak to all programs. My program was a set duration of 10 months. So we
Mhm.
started last January, we finished up this, and we're starting to push out graduation announcements this month, which is fun.
Yay.
It's fun.
So follow the Courageous Living Coach certification page. I'll be on there soon, having passed my certification. So ours was 10 months. The folks in my program, I was working full time and balancing that and doing the mom thing at the same time. Lots of folks
Mhm.
were, and there's also people who were in transition. Some people had been laid off and they're like, "This is what I'm going to do,"
Right.
and so that was kind of full time. They kind of dove into it and made it their full time job. And variations in between of people who did part time stuff, people who had jobs when the program started and then got laid off during things and things changed. And so 10 months is a long time to go through a cohort group
Yeah.
together. So these women that I went through this program together, I mean, we've been through a lot of life together and shared a lot of stuff. So it's a special thing to get to go through a
Yeah.
program like that with cool people.
Yeah, getting to, coach and be coached by a group. I
Mhm.
mean, that's a
Yeah.
real intimate setting,
Mhm.
and yeah, what how big was that group that you were with, or your particular
Mhm.
group of women that you were with?
There was about 25 of us in this program.
Oh.
Yeah.
And did
Yeah.
you ever do any was it in person or was it all
It's designed to have an in-person component, but with the pandemic, we got kind of,
COVIDness?
yeah. So our kickoff retreat was supposed to be in person, and that became virtual last January. And then we were going to have a makeup retreat. Remember in the summer when like everything was opening up and it was going to be cool.
That 2
So
glorious
they
weeks.
Yeah.
they scheduled the like end of program retreat, which was a new thing. We were going to do that in September, and then Delta hit, and then
Mhm.
so there is currently talk of a class of 2021 reunion in the spring of 22. Who
Yeah.
knows? In the pandemic world, we all stopped planning so far ahead. We'll
Oh,
see.
yeah,
Right.
no kidding. So,
Right.
are these people then from all around the country then?
International, actually.
That's
Oh.
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. I have a classmate in the UK. I have several classmates in Canada. I think that's it. I hope I'm not leaving anybody out. But yeah, yeah, it was fast. I mean, just people from all different walks of life, all different ages. I mean, everyone from people in their early 20s to some classmates in their 60s. It was fascinating. It was really cool.
How
Yeah.
interesting to get so many different perspectives when you're
Yeah.
all, talking about a particular subject. It's just, yeah, it's all different frame of references.
Mhm.
So cool. So now I have another friend who's gone through a similar process and she had to have like guinea pigs for lack of a better word, but she had to have people go through coaching with her as almost I
Mhm.
can't think of the word that I'm using, but it's like you're not fully certified yet, but
Mhm.
you have to get hours of
Yeah,
certified
training
or
training it.
coaching.
You have to log so many hours as a coach. Like,
So are you
yeah.
doing that now?
I am doing that. I am doing that. I have about 70 hours under my belt. I needed 60 for this program to pass. So 60 to finish my program. I've got about 70 now, and I need 100 to get to the ICF to jump through that set of hoops. And then there's an exam process and some mentoring I have to do and some other stuff. But yeah, so I'm still doing some work with some of my cohort. I've got a couple clients I work with, and I'm looking for folks. I mean, right now I'm in the phase of just really kind of coaching anybody. I haven't really gotten to the place of like, I coach this type of woman on this type of issue. Like I've coached people on everything from relationships to substance abuse to, career stuff. Somebody today I was coaching and we were talking about like, making peace with forgiveness and some stuff that had happened and really kind of exploring her relationship with that. So, I mean, I'm always kind of just humbled and awestruck that the tools of coaching and the process of two people coming together and the alchemy of that, like two people coming together to focus on one person, right? Like, and to just ask questions and kind of walk a trail together and, unpeel layers. Coaching is a subtractive process. We're moving stuff out of the way that's between you and your path, your goal, whatever that is. Yeah. Yeah.
I love that.
I know.
Yeah. Well, in a world where we all have too much stuff to do, right? Like coaching is not about like, let's kick your ass and let's do this and let's set some big goals and whatever. It's more like, how do we peel away what's not you? Like how do we really get down to like what matters? And once you have that alignment, things get easier. And we live in a culture that isn't, it's like slap a new routine on and try this and go to the gym more. And like, I mean, who do you know that isn't breaking under the weight of the schedules right now, right? Like everyone.
Right. Nobody. So. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So now
we are a culture of, I'm sorry, we always do that.
That's okay. You go.
I was just saying we are a culture of excess and add-ons. Mm-hmm. The idea of taking away is sort of scary, I think, to people when you start talking about like, what can you let go? We interviewed someone this week and the episode's upcoming, but without giving spoilers, one of the things she talked to us about was identify the stuff you don't have to do. And it's hard. As women especially, we're like, well, there's nothing. I have to do all of it. Just that's a falsehood, but getting people to that point to see it is tough.
Well, and that's something we talked about in the intro was the stories we tell ourselves, right? Like, and really just having a coach near you to say, is that true? Is that true? You can't let that go. Like, let's kick that around in a really supportive, empathetic, like container, but to say, let's check that out. Let's kick that around a little bit. Let's kick the tires and see, is that really true?
What does that look like?
Well, what if? Let's imagine. Let's do some imagining what would happen. And yeah, that's usually our egos, trying to hold on to like, yeah, but I'm important and I'm giving in my community and I'm this kind of mom, I'm this kind of worker, I'm this kind of whatever. And the fear is if I let that go, who am I going to be?
Yes. Whoa, that should be our tagline, Missy. That's our tagline. My goodness.
Tough one, man.
You see why, I mean, when I come back from coffee with Cindy, it's like, I got some stuff to think through. She asked me some tough questions up on the paddleboard.
And I don't know the answers. I don't know.
No, but there. Okay, now this is kind of separate from coaching, but we kind of alluded to it when we were talking about Ted Lasso and the difference between the coach and someone who is a psychologist or therapy or whatever. And so if this is out of your wheelhouse or just not anything that you feel comfortable talking about, just let me know. But I am curious for people who are trying to decide, do I need a coach or do I need to go to therapy? Like, is there, kind of some boxes they should check off to decide one versus the other?
Absolutely.
We love checklists.
I know. I love checklists too. No, this is absolutely. And as part of coach training, any good program should be helping the trainees understand where those lines are and where those boundaries are. So that, that's super important. And my take on it is that, coaching and therapy, they're in the same wheelhouse, right? Like it's all about talking it looks a lot the same, right? Like it's two people having an intimate conversation, right? Like at the end of the day, there's a lot of things in common. There are some bright line differences that we can talk about, things like, mental illness, right? If somebody has an active diagnosis, if somebody is actively struggling with depression, anxiety, eating disorders, things that would qualify in the DSM as actual diagnoses that are actively hurting or impacting your quality of life, you should probably be hanging out with a therapist, right? Like
Hmm.
that's it. So, you're dealing with mental illness. And what else? Things like trauma, right? Like coaches should probably stay away from trauma. And when you look at the ethical standards of the ICF, it is pretty clear about that. Like
Yeah.
we start talking about really going deep with trauma issues, that's out of the wheelhouse of where a coach should be hanging out. I think when you think about coaching, you can think about it in some ways as kind of a paraprofessional to therapy, right? So you have paraprofessional teachers, you have paraprofessional medical staff. Not everyone who goes to therapy is struggling with a real active diagnosis. A lot of folks who go to therapy have a diagnosis that's kind of in the therapy world is known as adjustment disorder. And not that it's a
Yeah.
throwaway diagnosis, but it's kind of the one
No,
when
but
somebody's in therapy. And adjustment disorder just kind of looks at like regular
covers a
people
lot.
dealing with regular people problems, right? You're
Mhm.
adjusting to your role as a mom, you're adjusting to a divorce, you're adjusting to a new job, and you're having a hard time, right? So someone who's kind of in that camp, who is not struggling with mental health issues, somebody who's dealing with regular life problems, and they feel stuck, they feel frustrated, they feel like they're not sure what their next step should be. Do I stay in the relationship? Do I leave? Things feel kind of not depressed, but maybe things feel kind of gray, you
Mhm.
know? And I'm looking like I remember a time when my life felt more colorful than this. What's
Hmm.
going on? That would be stuff that'd be good for coach. So I kind of think about it as like Venn diagrams, right? Like you've got two circles. You've got the therapy circle and the coaching circle. The truth is, a lot of folks could do well in either.
Right.
Yeah. Does that help? Is that kind
That
of
Yeah, that
help
helps a
does.
question?
lot.
Yeah,
And
that
do
really
people do them at the same time a lot? Or is it one of those things like you should probably go do your therapy and then enter coaching, or can they work together?
That's a great question. Before I did this program, I wasn't really familiar with that, but actually, I've seen in my program, I've seen a lot of people do that successfully together. So, somebody who maybe has some traumatic stuff from their childhood, right, that they want to be dealing with, or, a mood disorder or some stuff, maybe they're on some medication or whatever, but they're actively working with a therapist. It's going well. And they're interested in coaching to kind of explore a more specific career decision, or whatever. Coaching can really be about anything, but yeah, they
Mhm.
absolutely can work hand in hand. And there's some best practices with a therapist and a coach possibly even having communication and the consent required to
Oh,
to have that thing. So yeah, that
yeah.
actually isn't as uncommon as you might think. There are people who I coach who also have a therapist, and kind of with the therapist, they kind of focus on a different set of things, and then in coaching we do what we do. So
Yeah, I know personally when I went through some coaching, it unlocked some stuff that I did not realize was there and required some therapy.
Good. Did the
Alright, and I
coach help you get there? Help you kind of go, ooh, you need to.
yeah, some of the questions she was asking, they were helping me get unstuck at a certain point in my life, and really it was around my physical health had suffered because my mental health had kind of been for a while,
Mhm, mhm,
and she's an athlete, and she was helping me get back and find some of that, and but in the process of asking questions about my limiting beliefs, like what
mhm,
was it that was stopping me, I kind of went back and thought, I need to go deeper on some of these
mhm,
things. I My limiting beliefs don't just extend to my ability to do squats or run a mile. Like there's
mhm.
more there. And
Yeah.
so I had already had a relationship with a therapist, but I scheduled an appointment to go back and see her and dive into some other stuff because of some of the things that came up in our coaching session. And the woman who was coaching me said, I am not a therapist. Like I am not qualified
Mhm,
to offer you therapy. That's not what we're here for.
Mhm.
mhm. Good for
But it
her. Good for
yeah,
her.
yeah, she did a good job of
Good
saying
ethics.
yeah, and we
Mhm,
had because we had a friend relationship as well.
mhm.
She's like, "I'd love to dive in this with you. Like, I really would love to talk through it with you, but that's not what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if you have a therapist, let's go there."
Let's go
Uh,
there. Yeah, that would
mhm,
be better suited for there. Man,
yeah.
that's a cool experience, and not surprising at all. Like how beautiful that these things were showing up. Showed up in your
Yeah.
body, showed up in your mental health, and then you started peeling back the layers, and then like, "Ooh, oh look, we had more here than we thought." Like,
Yes.
right
Yeah.
on,
It
good for
takes
you.
somebody to ask the right questions, and sometimes
Mhm.
you can't ask yourself those questions for whatever reason. Like, they're in you somewhere, but you can't muster up the gumption and be like, "Here's what I really need to ask myself," and having a coach to sit across from you and say, "Well, why?
Yeah.
Well, why
Mhm.
that? Let's go to the next step."
Right.
And to not let
amazing.
you cheat out of the question either.
Oh, 'cause I'm a
Mhm.
big cheater. Big cheater.
Yeah, there's this concept of the compassionate witness, right? Like the compassionate
Mm.
witness and having another heart, another mind, looking at a situation. And so what's funny is this happens all the time when coaches are coaching other coaches.
Oh,
Um, and and sometimes I'll have a fellow coach ask me a question that just as soon as they say it, it's just so flippant obvious, like, oh, right, right. Like, and why didn't I see that? Right. I have the same
Mhm.
set of tools you do to ask these same questions, to be curious in the same ways, and they can see something that I can't see. So
Right.
that's incredibly human to say, like, yeah, why couldn't I just self-coach my way through that?
Yeah.
Coaching is a co-created process. It's a
Mhm.
Yes.
process of, and that intimacy, and again, the two energies coming together and saying, we're going to go into your inner world for a little bit. Let's go kick the ball around there and see what happens. Yeah, it's kind of beautiful.
And
So
another person's not doesn't always have that fear. There's that level of fear
Mhm.
to all of us. We're like, if I ask the question,
then I have
Mhm.
to
then
answer
yeah,
it.
and
Mhm.
I might not like
Mhm.
the answer. Almost guaranteed in my case, I almost never like the answer.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
that's scary,
And they
but
don't have
another
your
person.
stories.
Yeah.
They don't have
Mhm.
your beliefs. They don't have your story. So they say, what, and
Why?
there's a coaching technique called the 5 whys, right? And we go, okay, why is that? And they answer, okay, why is that?
Why is
And
that?
we keep going, and you get down, and it's like, oftentimes it comes down to like, I'm going to be alone. I'm going to be a bag lady. I'm going to,
Mhm,
I'm gonna be destroyed. I'll die. Right. When we get down to
mhm.
the fifth, why is that a problem? Why is that bothering you? And you get down, it's like ultimately what we're starting to talk about, like some really core issues as humans, feeling afraid of, if I don't have these things, who am I? I'll die. And
Mm.
and once
Oh,
you can wrap your arms around that and you go, oh, is that true? Am I gonna actually die? And you start backing it up and go, oh, I could make a different decision here. I wouldn't die. Like I might
and
have
die.
to change something. I might have to re-examine something. I might have to set a boundary in my life. I might have to whatever, but it's not going to be the end of the world. Like,
Mhm.
Might be hard, but I'm not
mhm,
gonna die.
yeah.
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 Oh my gosh. Well, okay. So now one of the things that we're hoping to encourage people, we are coming around to the New Year's, which I can't even believe that I'm saying that. I mean, it's November, but I want to at least get that seed in people's head. So as they do get closer to the New Year's resolutions and all this kind of stuff,
Mhm,
usually is stuff that people do for like 2 weeks and then they're done with it.
mhm,
And I do really think after a year of interviewing coaches that there's so much benefit. Even for we had a one of our way back when conversations with KJ Delantonia,
mhm,
and it wasn't life coaching, but it was book coaching.
Yep.
She
mhm,
was the editor of the New York Times Well Family page. She had written a book, but it was a nonfiction book, and she needed a coach to help her through the fiction one.
mhm.
Need, quote unquote, but she benefited
It's so helpful,
greatly from
yeah.
having a coach to help her with that.
Mhm,
And that just meant so much to me again from the writer's world of
Mhm,
even pros can benefit from a coach. Like you were saying, you being
mhm,
coached by other coaches, they
mhm,
can still
mhm.
find something that maybe you weren't able to find for yourself as a
For
professional
sure.
coach. So
mhm.
we are just trying to, I don't know if there's a stigma attached to it, or sometimes as women, we don't think that we're worth it because there is a price tag associated
Mhm,
with it.
mhm.
So we're trying to
Yeah.
kick all that to the side and get people through as many excuses as we can get through for people to not be looking for the help of a
Yeah.
coach. And one of the things that I really believe strongly is that some of the most simple things can be really intimidating. Like when I used to try to get people to go to the school board meetings,
Mhm.
just even telling people, here's a picture of the parking lot. Here's
Right.
the area where you will park. This is the
Yes.
building you will go to. When you get
You're
there,
talking to my husband, that's the information he needs to go anywhere.
Uh-huh.
Like,
Yes,
he wants to know where we're gonna park and
Uh-huh.
exactly
yes,
how it's going to work.
yes.
Yeah.
Who the host is at the restaurant would help him a lot. Like, he really wants all the information to go.
Well, no, we talked about this with Cindy and my stand-up
Mhm.
paddleboarding. I mean, talk about the universe telling you that it's time
Mhm.
to do
Mhm.
something. The week before Cindy even reached out of the blue and was like, "Hey, wanna go stand up paddleboarding?" This isn't something that we had been talking about,
No, we
but
hadn't.
I
I
had
didn't even
been
know if you had any, and I mean, I
no,
was fully ready for you to be like, "What are you talking about?"
it
No.
It was so weird because my daughter Zoe and I had been talking about it for months leading up to that,
Mhm.
and I finally got to the point where, like, I'm stalling enough, Zoe's gonna think I'm crazy, like, "Why haven't we signed up to do this?" And it was seriously the point of, like, I'm gonna put myself in the position, I'm gonna act as if I am a stand-up paddleboarder. What would be the first thing that I do? I would probably have to park my car. So
Mhm.
it was literally the act of, like, where would one park if one was gonna go stand up paddleboarding?
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, I parked, so I can do that. And so I do think that hopefully there are others like me, and I'm not the only one who feels this
Oh, there
way.
are a lot like you. Yeah.
But
Yeah.
so let's pretend instead of stand-up paddleboarding, it is going to see a coach. So what are those things, what
Yeah.
is the equivalent of finding the parking space to go
Mhm.
to with a coach? Like,
Mhm.
so I'm assuming someone starts by going to your website and
Yes.
reaching out. What would be the proper thing for someone to say who feels like they're already just asking the coach wrong? Like, what
Yes,
they
yes.
need to give you a 10-page, breakdown of
Mhm.
what they think their problem is, or do they just need to be, "Hi, my name's
Mhm.
Suzanne. What is your availability?" Like
Yes, yes. I would can I give you I have 2 thoughts about that
Yeah.
back up just a second about this, like, who needs a coach and, like, the stigma issue. And the first one is kind of from an athletic point of view. Like, we're all familiar with the idea that the best basketball players in the world have a coach.
Mhm.
The
Yes.
soccer players on Ted Lasso have Ted Lasso. The gymnasts have a coach. We're all used to the idea that in athletics there's a coach. I've been a runner since I don't know middle school. Middle
Oh,
school.
wow.
I've been a runner in some form or fashion, mostly recreational, mostly slow. And I have a coach here in Austin. I'm part of a running group, and I pay a coach. And do I know the basic workouts that we do? I do. Do I know how much mileage I need to run and half? I do. I know all that stuff. And does having a coach there to guide me, to keep me on track, to ask questions when I've got a race coming up this weekend and we had a workout tomorrow morning. I'm like, do you want me to do this one or this one? Like, which one would be better for me? And I can bounce it off of him. And he keeps his eye on the big picture while I'm stuck in traffic. And that's what I think a coach is about. So from an athletic point of view, the coach keeps the high level view while
Mhm.
you're driving through town. And the coach is like, you know what? You're good. Hang in there. In about 5 minutes, you're going to be in the clear. It's good. It's good. Like a coach can have that perspective. So from
Yeah.
an
Yes.
athletic point of view, I think that's a really lovely way to think about destigmatizing coaching, right? Like all kinds of high performing people have coaches, executives hire coaches all the time, vice
Yep.
presidents, all those kind of people have coaches. So there's that. And then the other thing that kind of came to my mind about coaching that I wanted to bring up is there's a deeply feminine tradition around coaching, the kind of feminine wisdom that in a
Mm.
more tribal society, right, a more intact society where we're not all alone in our little boxes, alone with our little white bees, doing this mothering thing, where there would be that kind of coaching energy, right? Like the elder women in the tribe would be there to go ask those questions to say, God, what's important to me here? What should I be thinking about? I have this decision to make and I feel really torn about it. Like, what does that look like? Or I'm totally overwhelmed, right? There was that wisdom collective that would exist. And it's a very feminine kind of
Mm.
thing of
Yeah.
people coming together. And one of my coaches said to me one time, in other times, I would just be like your cool wise aunt and like you would bring me a chicken. I was like, yes, yes. Like it's that kind of like co-created, we're in this together, we're all the same. Your coach is not a guru. Your coach doesn't have all the answers. They're just somebody who maybe sits in a place of non-judgment and can ask good questions, right? Like who might have some wisdom having walked that trail before, right? And so just two different ways of thinking about it, about why everyone needs a coach. Everybody can benefit from this. This is just really about like finding more of who you are and affirming that and moving forward in life in a way that feels good. So there's that. So how do you get started? What does that look like? Again, every coach is kind of different. There are coaches you have to apply to work with, and there's, things you go through. Most coaches, what it looks like is some variation of you make contact with them, whether that's on their website, you shoot them an email. Most coaches offer some form of a what's known as a discovery call, an intro call, usually complimentary, 15 to 30 minutes or so, where we just get to know each other. We kind of, what's going on for you? Martha Beck is a well-known coach, and she kind of has a question of like, so what sucks? Like, what sucks? What could be better in your life?
Missy
Like,
almost spit something out.
Yes, almost spit my bourbon a little bit, but I love that. I love that. Whatever is broken in me, like, loves starting with the what sucks.
what
That should
sucks,
be our
right?
new look, listen, learn. Instead of look, listen, learn, we're just gonna be like, okay, what
What
sucks?
sucks?
What
Oh, I
sucks?
kind
What
of
sucks?
like it.
I
Yes.
know.
Yeah, well, that's where we start. I mean, again, coaching is kind of a strengths-based approach. So, like, you may be rocking your workout routine, and that's great. You don't need to talk about that with me. Like, what's
Mm-mm.
sucking? Is your career kind of feeling stuck? Is your, like, whatever it is, like, that's where we need to go. We don't need to, like, I mean, I'll cheer you on. I'm glad to hear things are going well, but like, we come together to like improve what's sucking, right? So the discovery call kind of looks like that. What sucks? What's going on? What's your situation? What are you looking for? There are, in coaching, sometimes we talk about kind of a primary focus of like, in the course of X amount of time, 3, 6 months, something like that. Where do you want to be? Well, I want to feel not stuck in this career. I want to make a decision about staying in my marriage or not. I want to not feel so overwhelmed and stressed all the time, right? Like, that's kind of a primary focus. And then on any given session, we kind of have a focus that for that day, right? Like, so what's going on related to that today is going to kind of help peel that onion a little bit. Like, where are we going towards, working on overwhelm, right? Like, overwhelm is your thing. Okay, what's going on for you around that this week? And what can we do to move the ball down the field just a little bit in this session? So yeah, so it's really a pretty organic process. It's some coaches work on packages where you buy, 3 months, 6 months, 1 month, whatever, packages, and you pay up front. Some coaches are more session by session or month by month. You just want to get to know the coach and really look at, what does their social media look like? What does their writing look like? Have you heard them on podcasts? Like, do you vibe with their way of being in the world, right? Because it's pretty intimate. Like, you need to have that chemistry and that energy together.
Yeah, I'm guessing there's a gut feel. If
Yes.
just listen to yourself and be like, does this feel right?
Right.
Because
Well, and like, for
when you
example,
meet somebody out in the world, you're like, we're going to be friends. Like, I was just telling Cindy before we started, when Suzanne and I met, we roomed at a conference, and it was like, we're going to be all right. Like, we're going to make it. We're going to be friends. We can room
yeah.
together. This is good. You have a gut feel. And I
Mhm.
think it's the same with if you go to a doctor and you're like, I didn't like their bedside manner. You just
Yeah.
know. So if you're vibing with that coach, then
Mhm.
listen to yourself. Or if you're not, listen to yourself.
Yeah.
There's also styles of what you're looking for. So there are folks who would
Right.
put themselves out there as kind of an accountability coach, kind of I'm here to help you make change and kick your butt, and like, I'm gonna hold you accountable and that kind of thing. If somebody really was looking for that type of coaching, they would be a terrible fit for me, because I'm a lot more interested in, like, who are you in the world? Like, how do you move in the world? Like, what's your state of being? What's your state of your relationship to yourself, right? In those quiet moments, are you at peace? Like, are we, like, that kind of stuff? And so if somebody wants kind of kick my ass, I want to go take on the world coaching, like, there are a lot of coaches who would love to do that. I'm not going to be a good fit for that person, right?
Yeah.
So really, like, check out what somebody says about themselves on their website and believe them, right? Like,
Yeah. Yeah. And figure out kind of what you want out of the process.
Yeah.
Is there like a check? I'm sure you could just Google it, like a checklist of questions to ask a coach or to ask yourself about your interaction with that coach to see if they're going to be a good fit. People should probably use that when going out on dates as well and just interacting with other humans.
That's so sexy. That's just romantic. All right. So
That's why I don't go out on dates.
Well, that and you're married. I don't know. Well,
Oh
that's
my
great.
goodness.
I don't know of a formal checklist, but what you just said, I think that's the best advice I would give is, which also would apply on a date, is the question of kind of, how did you feel while you were talking to that person? Did you feel more like yourself? Did you feel heard? Did you feel like the questions kind of resonated? Like, those are the questions you need to hear, even if they were a little hard to hear. There's kind of that gut check of like, did I feel like myself with this person? Because yeah, you're going to be doing a lot of big work with them. So yeah, that's important. I don't know of any checklist, but yeah, maybe somebody should write one. I don't know.
Maybe. Hey, I think you just did. Those are just
those are
those
good
initial few
questions.
questions I think would be really good.
Yeah. I
Maybe
was in
that'll
my
be my
40s.
first blog post once I start.
There you go. I think I was in my 40s before I really realized it was okay to not feel that vibe and connection with anyone I considered a
Mm,
professional. So if
mhm,
I'd gone to, like, for example, I went to a therapist for a while that had some wonderful qualities, and she helped me with a big moment in my life that I needed to get past. But we reached a point where I realized she was not asking the right questions.
mm,
And she did not get where I was coming from, and we needed to part ways. It was painful for me. And
mhm.
so I think I'm leading up to a question, although I haven't quite formulated it yet. But if somebody is not ready to trust their gut, I think something like a checklist is a good idea, I
Mhm.
guess. But
Mhm.
Yeah.
I think what I'm wondering is, say someone gets 2 or 3 sessions down the road and you realize you're just not,
Mhm.
do they need to be afraid of saying this isn't working, or is it just it's okay to move
Yeah.
on and try the next coach?
So two things on that. The first one I'd say is absolutely. Yeah, if it's not a good fit in the coaching relationship, you're not going to be able to meet the goals that you're trying to get to. So yeah, absolutely. You need to say that. It's part of knowing yourself, and if your gut feels bad, to give voice to that, right? And
Yeah.
that practice of self-trust that you just talked about, like that's part of
Yeah.
becoming who you are, part of becoming an adult, and that's a really important step. That being said, there is an aspect of kind of resistance that can come up as well in coaching. And so
Mhm.
the one thing I'd say is you might want to check it out. Like, is it that I'm hitting this because I really like I kind of have a love-hate relationship with what I'm trying to progress on, right? Like,
Right.
am I really ready to do it? And also I would say this: if you're not ready, you're not ready. Like that's okay
It's
too,
okay.
right? So
Yeah.
yeah, one of the coaches that I've worked with who helped me get started on this path, she said, I don't want anybody here who doesn't want to be here. Like I would never hold somebody in a package or in a something because
Right.
right? Like that just it's kind of at odds with coaching. So with the caveat of checking it out for yourself. Is it resistance? Is it that I'm scared to change and I'm kind of blaming the coach? You
Mhm.
just would want to check that out for yourself. And again, nobody can tell you that but you, like your
Right.
wisdom of God, this isn't getting me to the place I need to be in the way that it was for a while. It reminds me of the first time you find out that you can not like a doctor, like that you
Right.
can be
Oh,
at a
I did
doctor's
not
office and
think
you
that
just
was an option. Yeah.
right, right. I totally hear that. Yeah.
Yeah.
You're like, no, I didn't jive with them. And I remember somebody said that to me in my 30s and they were like, well, you can just go to a different doctor. And I was
What?
like, what, you can do that? What? And yeah, they're like, it's called a second opinion.
Oh,
Yes.
same. I mean, I was in my 40s before I was like, "I don't like that guy. I'm
Yeah.
out." But it
Amen.
was hard to do, and I still feel like I owe him some explanation. I
Mm.
do not.
I
I
do not.
fired a doctor. He was so horrible to me. Like it became almost a joke, like 3 visits in a row. And finally one time, I think was I pregnant or I had just had my son and I had a reaction to shrimp and I was covered in welts,
Mm.
hormonal, a mess. I call and like this is going on. And he was like, "Oh, we'll go take some Benadryl and, go to bed." He's like, Are you able to breathe?" And I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Well, then you're okay." And I was just like, no, no, and I
I'm
was
not
so
usually covered in hives, so I'm
I
gonna say I'm not all right.
basically like, I couldn't think about it then, but then the next day, I just called up the office, and I was like, "I just need to let you know that was not cool, I did not appreciate
Mm.
that. I'm sure that
Yeah.
you as a doctor see, like, things that are a million times worse than this, but
Mhm.
as, the mom of a newborn who's covered in hives and hormonal, like, you need to read the room, mister." And so
Seriously.
but no,
And
so
all it
yeah.
would have taken was a drop of empathy, like
A
a
Yes.
drop
drop
of
of
empathy.
empathy,
Like,
or
oh my
or a
gosh.
drop of courage in the previous 3 times that he's the same doctor who, when my knee hurt, had me sit down
Oh,
and did the
do
leg
this business.
wiggle
Yeah.
and made my thighs go bloop, 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 and then he's like, "Yeah, that's why your knee hurts." I'm like, "I hate you." So, I should have known
Don't
a
make
long
my
time ago.
thighs jiggle.
He's also the one that when I went in, when I was starting to have anxiety attacks while driving, was
Mm.
like, "Okay, well, this is a half-hour appointment, and I think your problem is that you need to do immersion therapy, so just go drive for a half hour." And I was like, "I have panic attacks when I drive." He's like he's like, "Well, yeah, but you'll work through it by doing it. And no one's expecting you home for a half hour because you blocked out a half hour for this appointment, so go drive for a half hour."
So essentially, get out of my room and go drive a thousands pound machinery
He's
while you're
the
panicking.
worst. He's the worst. I wish I remembered his name so I could warn everybody in Ballard, Seattle, Washington. Watch
Okay,
out.
he's not here.
Oh, he's the wor no, he's not in Austin. But anyway, so yes, listen to your gut.
That is breathtaking, Suzanne. That is
I
so you needed
Really?
a coach to help guide you through that
I
experience to be like, "Does
do.
this feel right to you? Does
I
this
need
feel
a
right?"
medical coach. You know what? I have a friend who actually does. She's a medical advocate, and she will go along
Mm,
with you to your medical appointments,
that's cool.
primarily for people who are elderly and don't have, like, a
Mhm.
someone to go with them.
I
But
was
I could
thinking about that this week.
I
It's total
probably
bunny trail, but I have a friend who's dealing with some stuff with her parents. And of course, the permanent doubter in my head was like, I don't know if I'm going to be able when it's time. I want someone to go with me. I'm
I'll
glad to
hook
know
you up
there are
with
those people.
Belinda. I'll hook you up with Belinda.
Yeah.
She's a medical
Yeah.
advocate and just
I
started
just,
her own practice.
I just want to start hanging out with her now just to get me ready.
She's fun. See, yeah, I'm just gonna start bringing I just have the most amazing friends. I'm
You
just so
do. You attract that, Suzanne. You are an interesting person, and you just bring these
Mhm.
interesting. I mean,
Mm.
you're a magnet for this stuff.
Oh, well,
Agreed.
I'm glad I
On
magnetized you.
Thank you. Me too. I was just thinking about the bunny trail you just went down about the medical advocates. One of the things that I think is really fascinating, just personally, is there are like death coaches. There
Mm.
are people who their whole work is to assist families with the process of letting someone go. And I just
Yes.
think like,
Mm.
what kind of holy work is that? Like, oh, intimate, beautiful, like, but think about all the little things you don't know. You've never been through. You hire doulas and
Yeah.
support and stuff to
Yep.
give birth. Like, why wouldn't we have that when on the way out, right? Like, it makes sense. And so, just
Yep.
an example of how wide coaching can be. There are people who help coach families through that process.
Yeah. I had
So
a
when you
friend who
talk,
was talking about doing that the other night, and I think that's so beautiful because as someone who has lived through working with hospice,
yeah,
dealing with a
Mhm.
relative going through hospice, um, there as in any other profession, there's a whole wide variety of levels of hospice workers. For the
yes,
most part, I mean, they are angels on earth. And I think actually for the most part, like 99.9% of them are, but they it's so much a part of their regular life, kind of like the doctor who was not impressed by the fact that I had hives from shrimp. So they almost become not numb to it, but they are just, this is just par for the course. This is just what happens every day. And so they can almost become a little too matter of fact.
Mhm.
Um, and part of it is probably for their own self-survival that they have to do that. They cannot become, a puddle every time they have to explain the bag of stuff that they are giving someone who is working through that. Um,
right.
but I think that people who are specially trained, the friend who mentioned it the other night called it a death doula,
Mhm.
which I don't know if that is the industry standard or if it's a particular level of coach, but
Yeah.
I do think there probably is kind of maybe a little bit more of the empathy and
Mhm.
the sensitivity around it, probably more than what you get, covered by insurance in terms of,
Right.
again, angels on earth, these hospice workers, what they are able to do. But, they're a little bit more medical versus kind of the coach. I
Mhm.
mean, if you're
Mhm.
looking at the 2 different levels of it. So I think that's amazing that that exists, and
Mhm.
what a gift to give not only the person who is the patient, but their family, friends, and everyone
Right.
around them is what a special, special.
It
Right.
kind of
I'm
goes back
thinking.
to what Cindy was saying earlier about in a different time, we would have lived in a community with our
Mhm.
elders.
Mhm.
And y'all are lucky I'm not wiping mascara off my face because that almost made me cry because we are missing that the way our lives
Mhm.
are now
Mhm.
and just the ages we are when we start to have children and it's just
Yeah.
everything is different now in the way we live our lives and where we move and all of it.
Mhm.
We're just much more mobile, but
And
we're
much more
missing
alone.
that and much more alone. And
Yeah.
you would have someone to say, this is what death looks like. This is
Mhm.
how it's gonna go, and, these are the things
Yeah.
that could happen, and a lot of us don't have somebody in our life to say that now,
Mhm.
and so, yeah, it's just amazing that there's coaches for everything you
There's
need, and
coaches for
I
everything.
feel like that's how we rebuild our community is having a coach
Mhm.
to walk us through it, and then maybe we give the gift of passing that knowledge on sometime.
Mhm.
Sure,
Mhm.
for sure. Well, the idea of one person heals, that it heals the community, but it also heals generations, like
Generations.
generations. That's what we're talking about here. And you think
Mhm.
about in the death process, you talked earlier about, you started peeling back and then like, oh, look, there's more there. What happens in family units at the time of death when somebody's, in the process of dying, right? What happens? Families tend to erupt, right? Like there's
Yeah.
all kinds
Mhm.
of unspoken things that have been buried and put away in the closets, and this starts tumbling out, right? Like
Yeah.
so the idea of having someone there to help a family navigate that's so cool to me.
Yeah. And
It's amazing.
in any level of coaching, talk about generationally, you are only gonna learn wonderful things to, live by
That's on.
example and to pass on to your own kids and to
Mm-hmm.
model that behavior and that way
Mm-hmm.
of thinking
Absolutely.
through problems so that I would venture to guess that your goal would be to be able to put all coaches out of business. Like, so, like, if people could handle this on their own, that would be,
Yeah.
I know you from a loving place would love for everybody to be able to just kind of handle this on their own. But the fact is,
Based on what we
even
know about the
Tiger
world, that's
Woods
never
needs a
happening.
coach.
Right, right,
No.
right. And the condition of being human, right? Like that
Yeah.
there's always like
Yeah.
even if we could heal the kind of suffering that people have now, the isolation, the overwork, the stress, like whatever that looks like. Let's say we could magically heal that, right? Then what, right? The
Yeah.
condition of
Then
being
what?
human
It's
means
always
that there would
changing.
be there would be a different level of meaning making and pursuit of pleasure and joy, and like what does that mean, what does that look like, what's productivity look like in a healthy society,
Mhm.
right? Like I don't think there is an end to it. Like it's
Yeah.
not like you're going to coaching because you're broken, you're going to coaching because you're human, right? Like it's a
Yeah.
process of evolving, and I think that's, we talked earlier about the difference between coaching and therapy. Really, coaching is based on the idea of clients are, resourceful, they're creative, they're whole already. Like they're not broken, right? And that
Mm,
when you
right.
really look at the roots of therapy, it's based in the medical model of like a diagnosis, and that there was a professional who knew more and, treated, and hierarchy, right? The doctor knew
Right.
and you didn't. And so coaching is just a much more flat level egalitarian. Like we're all in this together, we're all human, we're all walking the same messy path.
Mhm.
Right. And the
I love
idea, I
that.
mean, one of the things that holds coaches back is a lot of coaches are like, I can't be a coach until my life is perfect, right? Like who could I help? And really working through that limiting belief, right? Like the idea that my life has to be perfect in order to ask you thoughtful questions about yours. I'm not judging, right? Like it's
Right.
all done in a container of empathy and humanness, and my struggles are your struggles. We're all in this together.
Oh, I love that.
I love it. I feel like that's a good place to
That
kind of
is that
tie
is.
our bow.
I know that does tie a bow, but before we tie a bow, where can
Mm,
people find you?
Yes.
Because you need some hours, right? You
I
need some
do.
people to help finish up that accreditation. So
I
let's
need it on several levels because I need the hours, but honestly, I need it because coaching is the most fun thing I've ever done. It is my favorite thing. When I go through a morning and all I've done is coach, I get to lunch and I'm like, do do do
On a
do do. Like
high.
it's
Mhm.
so energizing. It's just my favorite thing in the world. So come hang out with
Yeah.
me, man. It's great. I just created my first website ever, which was terrifying and scary and fun, and it's my first stab at putting myself publicly out there in the world. So I used inspiration from Suzanne, who has made 1,000 websites and knows all about putting herself out there. So I'm at cindywhitesides.com. I was able to get my name and a little bit of information about me. And there's a contact form and the let's chat button. It gets over to my scheduler. And we can do, oh, there it is. And we can do I've got a 20-minute call where we can just talk and see if it's a good fit. It's not a sales call because I don't even know what that looks like. I just love hanging out with cool people and talking about stuff. If we're a good fit, then we'll move forward. And right now I'm doing coaching for $50 an hour until I get my
Steal.
certification, and then we'll do that. So it's a good deal if you've been wanting to dip your toe in the water and kind of check
Yeah.
it out. I'd love to talk to folks.
that is a good deal.
Yeah. It is a good deal.
That is a good deal.
I'm like, maybe.
I know, exactly. Although I kind of trick her into coaching me sometimes over a Starbucks hot cocoa.
I
Talk
am
about a deal.
apparently plied with coffee and scones. That does happen time to time.
Oh my gosh. Well, this has been so amazing. Now, I feel like people have got to know you, around your professional coaching, Cindy, but we like to do
Mm,
our look, listen, learns to learn a little bit more about you outside of the
yes.
professional realm. And I know that you are a listener. So usually one of us will start just in case a guest has not listened before.
Yeah. It
But
happens. It happens.
since you're a pro, have you been look, listen, learning anything this week, Cindy?
I have, and I was adequately warned and prepared as a listener and a friend. So thank you. It's funny because we've mentioned Ted Lasso many times, and I just feel like that's such a cultural
So
touchstone right now. This show about like positive masculinity and kindness and women supporting each other in this cool way you don't always see on TV. So lately I've been calling Ted Lasso repeat my emotional support TV show, like an emotional support animal.
yep.
Yes.
Like when I'm feeling like the world is just too much, it's like I just go curl up under a blanket with Ted Lasso. This is okay. So so there's that. That's my look.
Yes.
My listen is something that actually I really nerd out about is, and we haven't touched on today, but it's another pet project of mine is empowering women around money. I've been the CFO of this
Ooh.
medical practice for 8 years, and I've learned a lot about our money stories. Again, this all falls under coaching, but our money stories and our beliefs around money. And there's a podcast I love listening to. It's called Beginning Balance, and it's by the founder of this software called You Need a Budget. So the Beginning Balance website is my favorite website to, they just nerd out about business money issues, but really it's all about intentionality with your money, whether it's
Mm.
business or personal, and really getting to know your money, being intimate with your money, knowing your intentions behind what you're doing with your money. And as somebody who's gone from like being terrified of like, my modest state salary I used to have, like that used to be intimidating to me, and now running a
Yeah.
multi-million dollar business and now I deal in large amounts of money. I just learned a lot about like how you see your money and like how you relate to it really matters. So
Mm.
Beginning Balance is my new podcast crush, and I've been doing that.
Oh, I'm totally gonna
Oh,
check that out
yeah,
because
me
I
too.
know that you talked about the whole philosophy behind,
Mhm.
the budgeting mentality and having these kind of silos of money for special so nothing's ever a
Mhm.
surprise, basically.
That's
Right.
right. Yeah,
Um,
yeah. The known unknowns. Like we all walk around with our money, like you're never gonna need new tires again.
yeah.
Like you're never gonna have a air conditioner break. Like, of course
Mhm.
you are. Those are
Of
known
course.
unknowns. You know that they're gonna happen. You don't know when or how much, but
Right.
that's
You know it's
coming.
coming.
Like, right. And so we all treat it like
Yeah.
it's an emergency, right? Like, holy shit, my water heater went out. Like, of course your water heater went out. Like, was that a surprise? Like, and just in shifting our relationship with money from one of being really reactive to being more proactive about it. But here's my really exciting one on Look, Listen, Learn. Here's what I'm learning about. My family has been selected to be a Nielsen household. So we're going to get to carry these little beeper things, and we're going to get
Yeah.
to inform the world of our viewing choices. I don't know. I don't know
How does that
exactly how.
Oh
work
my
now? Because
gosh.
we did that way back in the dark ages, like, oh
Uh-huh.
my gosh, probably 20 plus years ago. So it's
Right.
very different. Like you had like a special box you put on your TV and it
Yes.
Oh,
tracked it
yeah,
that
no,
way.
it's essentially kind of a pager, like a small thing that you kind of you can keep it in your purse or keep it in the kid's backpack or whatever. And then there's some devices that are in your house that help tease out, like if the whole family's watching together, it doesn't count 5 times, like
Oh, uh-huh.
whatever.
Mm.
I don't know all about it, but I feel weirdly powerful with this. Like we will be listening to a lot of NPR.
I
Oh
was
yeah,
gonna
that's
say,
what I'm
take down
saying.
Fox News, take down
That's
Fox News.
that's exactly where I'm going with this.
Yes.
That's important to me. So that's my learn this week. I'm learning how to be a Nielsen household.
Oh my gosh,
Oh,
it's so fun.
that's
You are powerful.
fascinating. I used to use that data because I used to be a media planner back in my advertising days,
Yeah.
That's
my first advertising
right.
days. And yeah, it does come in handy for when you're trying to decide, like, is anybody actually watching that show? Do I want to pay to, advertise there if no one's watching it? So yeah, max out on your NPR and just
Totally. Totally will.
Yeah. And your Ted Lasso.
oh my gosh.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah. We want more Ted Lasso in our life.
That's right. We want
I
more content like
love
that.
Ted.
Cool.
Okay, Missy, what do you look, listen, learning?
Well, as I said earlier, there's only so much a girl can look, listen, learn. So
Yeah, yeah, for people who were not around for that part of the conversation, it is Tuesday, and Missy and I are on our 3rd
Well, we'll be on our
No, we'll
third
be on our third
tomorrow.
tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so
intense, y'all.
we're trying to front load a bunch of shows so that we're not recording or, trying to get guests to come, "Hey, it's Thanksgiving, come and chat with us." So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we're already done. As of tomorrow, we'll be done recording for the year.
So crazy.
Except for Missy and I are gonna do some this is part of my look, listen, learn, so I'm not gonna talk about it. I'll talk about it in a minute. You talk about your look, listen, learns, Missy.
Okay. I won't talk about it a ton because we've already talked about it on the show, but we've started Only Murders in the Building based on recommendations. I think it was your Look, Listen,
It
Learn, right? It wasn't a guess.
was such a cute show,
Yeah.
or cute
Oh my
as far as
gosh.
murders go.
I mean, right. It's adorable murders. But it is it's great. I started it with Mark, and it's hard to find things that we're both like all in on. And then I was reminded of another that we're about to start, which is kind of like, I don't usually look, listen, learn. But when you were talking about having coaches in an office, I don't usually talk about things I haven't watched yet, but the new season of Succession is out,
Yes.
and of Billions. And in Billions, she kind of operated as a coach at times.
Oh,
Like,
that's
just like
right.
how she would come in, the people would come in the office. I don't know where they are in Billions right now. I can't remember like where she even works, but both of those shows are coming back and I'm super, super excited. But I think I'll watch them after November because November is bananas.
Yes.
Um,
Everybody needs a coach in Succession because they are all a mess.
oh my gosh, they're such a mess, and it's not the normal show I would like. Like,
No.
I talked about it here on the podcast before that I have a little bit of an aversion to power, but both
Yes.
Billions and Succession are all about power and money, and I cannot get enough, so I don't know what that says about me.
It's your alter ego.
Shadow self.
Like, I love it. I love how dysfunctional they are, how broken all the people are, and I love that they're employing some coaching principles on their television show.
Yes.
So,
Okay.
I think I'll wrap it up there.
You're right. That's all
I'm
you
gonna
got.
wrap it up there.
Okay, so I am looking and listening to the book Little Bee
Oh,
by Chris Cleave. Have you listened, or is this why I'm reading this? Because of you?
I don't think it was me
No?
that I don't know.
So I feel like
It's a
someone
good
brought it,
one.
but it also is my book club book. And
Okay.
book club is next week. Well, I think they just canceled it because they're Novembering. They're like, nope, I just realized it's November. Nothing can happen until January.
Right.
But I was trying to catch up. So I'm actually listening to it. And also, so I read it when I'm in bed and I listen to it when I'm driving around, which makes it really
You just skip
hard.
forward.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need there to be a feature on the Audible or whatever that says this corresponds to such and such page in the book because I spend
Uh-huh.
a good portion of my day flipping through trying to figure out exactly where I'm at. I need to just
Yes.
start staying with one until a chapter is done is what I need to do. That's
That'd
probably
be
what a
easiest.
normal people
Yeah.
would do. But no, that's not how I do it. So that
I need
is
you to
what
go
I am.
trademark that tech idea, Suzanne.
I know.
There's
I've
a
also heard that some people actually listen while they read it, which I've been kind of tempted to
Oh.
do. Um,
Like literally
Wait.
at the same time?
so it's like having someone read it to you. It's like as if you had a little invisible person tucking you in at night and read while you're following along the words in the book. Because I have a really hard time reading. I don't know if maybe I have a little touch of either ADHD or I don't
Hmm.
think it's dyslexia. I don't know. It's something with actually reading it vision wise that I have a hard time. I
That only at
can
night, or is that always?
no, kinda always. I
Mm.
do a lot better if I'm listening. Like, I
Mm.
can remember if you, like, say a line from a book, I can remember, like, where around the lake I was running when I read that. Like, I have a
My
really
brother's like
weird,
that, yeah.
um,
Mm.
reception for, like, listening to things. That's probably why I love podcasts so much, but there are times I will fall asleep in 2 seconds if I'm listening to the book. I can actually stay awake a little bit longer if I'm reading it in bed
Mm.
versus listening to it. Like last night, I woke up with my headphones in. I think I made it maybe a minute in. It's like
Do you set the timer to turn it off at a
I
certain
do. I
point?
set the
Yeah.
timer for 15 minutes and then I back up to see like how far I made it. And yeah, it was about a minute. And listen to that. And then I also, as we were talking about, we have guests pretty much scheduled through, I think like the second week of December that we have.
Sounds right.
But Missy and I really, we're going to be, gosh, this is the episode we're running tomorrow.
Yeah.
Cool.
is this Megan Logan, the self-love workbook for women
So
who
if you're
we're
listening to this episode, by the time you listen to it, it
it
will
was
have
a
been
couple
the
days ago.
episode we ran a couple days ago.
Yes, but if
Okay.
you're watching this now, it's releasing tomorrow. No, not tomorrow, Thursday.
Thursday,
I'm
yeah. Oh,
really ahead of it with edits. I'm halfway done editing it.
oh, good. Well, I
Um,
just had a full panic. I was like, "Not tomorrow.
no, it's
Damn
not
it."
tomorrow. Sorry, I've been because we're doing NaNoWriMo, I'm trying to get ahead of things so that I
Yes,
have extra
same.
time that would have been editing tomorrow. So I'm halfway done editing it and oh my gosh, I just Megan Logan, it was so fantastic. This book is crazy. It's like number 1 on Amazon for pretty
Mhm.
much any self-help
Yep.
or whatever category. It is like number 80 or 85 in
I think
all of
overall,
Amazon. Like
yeah.
like
That's
not just
wild.
in a category, in all of
Oh,
Amazon.
Are you
Um,
doing the book? Are you working through it?
we are gonna do what we were talking about. We had talked with Megan about doing this too. Poor Megan. I seriously was like almost her marketing director. I was like, she's like,
you're like,
"Yeah,
"I gotta
I'm
do
thinking of
it."
maybe,
Mhm.
putting my Instagram back up." And we're like, "You need to be
Yes.
doing this. You need to be doing this. You should have a podcast." And she's like,
You should have a
"No,
podcast.
I just kind of like to have my clients."
Mm.
But so yeah, so Megan, I think just and it's kind of nice in the fact that she knows what she wants and what she's comfortable with, and she's doing exactly what
Mhm.
she wants to be doing, despite the fact that Missy and I tried to like get a road show of Megan going around the
Yeah.
country, a media tour.
She's such a gentle, calming presence
Oh,
Mhm.
with
she was
just
awesome. But she's
one
like,
gem after another, you know?
yeah, she's
Yeah.
like, someone invited me to their book club to go over the book, and now I'm a member of it. She's just like, so
That's sweet.
we're like, "Come be
We're gonna
a
do a
member
book
of
club.
our book group." So, we'll see if we actually are able to get Megan. I mean, when
She's
you have
busy.
number 85 book, people are literally, she said, calling her, like, at home, which is kinda creepy deepy. Don't do that to Megan. She seems
Yeah.
very lovely.
That's wrong.
But I
And it
we were
might be you calling her to tell her how to do
like,
her Instagram page, but
yeah,
whatever.
"Megan, I had another idea for what you should be doing." Oh my god. Poor I'm like, "You need a TEDx, you need this." But
Ah.
no, she was just amazing. But so Missy and I were talking about, well, we need to just have an excuse to make sure that we're actually doing this.
Mhm.
So we will probably within our mom and community on Facebook. s- We're trying to not break any copyright laws or,
Right. That's
disrespect
tricky.
the
Mhm.
actual content, but still talk around the topics that are in the book and have some meaningful discussion around that. I mean, as she said, first of all, the point was made. It's kind of an interesting story where even though it's her book, it was for this, whatever the publisher is. I don't even know who
Yeah,
the
I can't remember.
Rockridge Press, it looks like. They kind of reached out to her and said, "We want to do this book. Can we use your knowledge to do it?" So it's their book. She does not we're not pimping her
Mhm.
out. A sale of this book does not necessarily
Does
go to
not
Megan.
benefit
She
her.
has she has
Mm-mm.
been paid for the work
Wow.
she's gonna do on this book.
That's
S
wild.
so she's not out there
Yeah.
trying to hawk the book, but I can tell you for the amount of information, that you get out of it, it's like under $10
Yeah.
on Amazon.
Yeah.
I'm
Wow.
not trying to sell stuff on Amazon. Go try to find it on your local
Yeah,
bookseller
trying to
too.
find a similar
But I mean, you can't even print the book. It's gorgeous. It's like full
it's
color. You can't even print
gorgeous.
it for $10. So,
No.
That's
I think
wild.
it'll be worth it if people wanna go out and get a copy of the book before December. We are planning on doing some of the exercises and talking through some of the exercises, and so it'll probably just be a couple episodes there in December that Missy and I record, shorter than our usual hour,
Mhm.
where we just kinda talk through some
45
of those
minutes.
exercises. See? Or it might be 3 hours, we don't
Yeah.
know. We
It might end up being like a 10-part series.
what we're gonna do is we're just gonna have a Megan Logan fan club. We're gonna have a whole dedicated group. No, we don't
I'm
know what we're gonna
imagining
do.
her in your closet with you. Like, I'm
I
imagining her
know.
being like, "Here she
Yeah,
is.
Megan's
Let's
gonna
do
be like,
it."
"Boo." Yes. No, I already have my
Yeah.
pocket person, so she can't be my pocket person, so
Well, you
she'll
can
be
have
my
multiple pocket people. You know,
that's
I have
two.
many who fit in my pockets.
It's like
And
cargo pants. So
right.
we can
Yeah.
yeah, Stacy
Yeah.
Kim
Megan
is my pocket person. Megan can be my closet person. I don't know who we're gonna have.
Megan and
So
Stacy would be great friends.
Wouldn't they? I think all of the coaches we interview should just hang out
Have a
together
club.
because
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
We
including
got some
Cindy.
cool
I'm
people
Yeah.
s
on.
I'm so excited you are officially among the truly certified coaches
Yes.
because
Thank
even
you.
uncertified, you have been a life changer for me. So I'm so excited to see what
Mm.
you're going to be able to do for other people. I'm excited for them. I'm excited for you. Go to cindywhitesides.com. We will have it in the show notes, the link to
Mhm.
that. But yeah, so is there
Thanks,
any
y'all.
any final words for either one of you before we log off? We
Sounds
have
very
gone
serious.
once again way beyond. No, not finally.
No,
I
no.
just wanted to say thank you guys so much for this opportunity. This is the first podcast I've ever gotten to do ever. So that's why I brought my Tipsy. This was a glass of Prosecco because this was super fun. And Suzanne strong-armed me into this at the last book reading we went to.
Mhm.
And
Yes.
I kind of was hoping that maybe she had a couple beers before she passed. She would remember.
Forget.
And I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it. And she followed up and said, no, we're doing this. And I was like,
We're doing it.
we're doing it. Okay, great. So but thanks y'all. This has been really, really fun. And I've loved your podcast. I'm such a big deal that you guys got to that 40th episode. I listened to that one while I was power washing my driveway. I told Suzanne I had to keep stopping and jumping around because y'all were talking about such cool people that I wanted to go check them out. So y'all are I love what y'all are doing. It's been super fun to watch from the sidelines back when this was just an idea that y'all were kicking around, and I just love it that you've made it happen. It's helping a lot of women. I know I send episodes that you guys have to friends all the time. So thanks for having me. This has been a joy.
Thank you so much for
Mm.
everything, for friendship,
Yes.
and for letting us be your first podcast. That's so
Yeah, and being
special.
brave and doing it. Like, see people,
Yes.
just do it. Just do the thing.
Yes. Oh, well, thank you so much. We
Right.
really appreciate it. Are you logging us off then,
I'm gonna
Missy?
log us off alive, everyone.
Thank you, everybody,
Thank
for
you.
joining.
Right. Bye, y'all.
Thank you so much for joining us for the Mom and podcast. We hope you enjoyed the show today. And if you know someone else who could benefit from today's episode, be sure to share it with them. Also, please subscribe and rate us wherever you listen to podcasts. You can find links to all the things we discussed today in the show notes over at our website, momandpodcast.com, with the AND spelled out. In between shows, you can find us at the socials, including our private Mom and Community Facebook group. You can find links to the group, all of our socials, and our questions and comments section over at our website, momandpodcast.com. Thank you so much for your support. We appreciate you so much. Now go out there and make your ellipses count.